Florida State needs to keep the, foot down, man. And offense, I'm just not been. It's been rough to watch whenever they have that chemistry, and then it just falls off in between games in that second and third quarter, and then you're desperately having to fight to come back. That just can't happen. This team, you can do that against Georgia Tech, probably, but it didn't work against ranked teams. And I'm hoping that Florida State, no matter who you're facing, should start getting onto a trend of doing that no matter whoever the hell you face.
Hey guys, it's Terrence Mann. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by Noel Game Day. Go Noles.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Ward, a.k.a. E-Dub, in the house. We're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by Noel Game Day. Go Live, go Noles.
Hi, this is Charlie Ward, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, go Noles.
This is Terrell Buckley. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by Noel Game Day. No Bloody.
But perhaps better known as the greatest corner to ever step on a football field, Deion Primetime Sanders.
Great Deion Sanders, my brother. What's going on, man? I could wake up to that greeting every day, man. That was awesome.
Hello, Noles fans. This is former Seminole Derek Brooks, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, presented to you by Noel Game Day.
James Wilder Jr. What's going on, James?
Thanks for having me on. FSOD, Florida State or Die, and go Noles.
William Bar None Floyd.
Gentlemen, what's up?
What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoelGameDay.com. We are here on a splendid and wonderful Wednesday evening with the whole entire crew. Beezy's back after taking a sick leave. Last week it was all right. Me and D-Lou held down the bye week. Florida State is back in action. Both Dustin and I we're at Tuesday and Wednesday's practice, so we'll be recapping that as we get you prepped for Florida State's game against Georgia Tech as they try to get back into the win column and get that winning streak back just like how they had it in September. With me this evening is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoelGameDay.com, and down below is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer, which things are starting to pick up down there. He's got some scoop to give us on the show later. How we doing, gentlemen? Good to see you guys.
Great to be back. Nice little bye week. Get a couple days off. It was cool just to chill on a Saturday and watch some other games for once instead of having obligations. And definitely enjoyed it, but 5 more games, hopefully 6. So time to get back to it.
I'm just glad to be healthy again. Last week sucked.
Didn't feel good.
Yeah, glad you showed up.
Yeah, I woke up last Tuesday morning. I'm like, man, I want to die. It was one of those.
Damn.
And yeah. We were good by Friday, though.
You think it's that weather change from going from warm?
Oh, yeah, especially up here.
That?
It went from like 85 degrees to about 35 in about 2 days.
Yeah.
And then went right back to 65, 70.
Exactly.
All messed up.
That weather change messes me up all the time. I get like a sore throat, then I'll get a cold, and I'll have a cough. It's like a whole week-long thing. But, hey, I'm glad you're back in action because things are starting to pick up on the basketball side of things. So there's no time for rest now. This is the best part of the year where you've got basketball incoming and we've got football to talk about. This is where the show really starts picking up. So excited for that. D-Lou, did you have a good weekend? You said you watched some games. Got to see Mario Cristobal fall to Duke. I mean, does it get any better than that?
Yeah, I got to watch that, and then I got to watch Tom Brady lose to Carolina the next day. So just stacking up the dubs on the weekend.
See, now I'm not a fan of Tom Brady, but we do cover them I'll be down there tomorrow night for the game in Tampa for the Ravens.
Oh, you're going?
Coming to town. Yeah, I'm going down there and coming back immediately.
And you didn't come up to Charlotte for the Bucs game. What? Like?
No.
I'm glad. Look at
no.
Yeah, but y'all could have come up and
our future schedule. If both teams win this weekend, then our next week's schedule is not going to be any type of fun of going down to Miami and then going to the Rams game the day right after. So we're limiting the travel tomorrow night. We're fine. And a quick little Saturday game when Florida State faces Georgia Tech at noon. Let's start jumping into things, guys. There's not a lot of stuff out there. There's some good stuff to kind of go over. With always, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Subscribe down below. If you're on Facebook, share with all your friends. We're live every Wednesday. We'll do an instant reaction also after every game. So you'll see one right afterwards, around 4-ish o'clock after Florida State faces Georgia Tech. Let's jump into some things, D-Lou. Before we get into some recruiting stuff, and we'll talk some Desmond Ricks here with some scoopage there. Let's talk some practice observations from Tuesday and Wednesday. Anything that really stand out to you? We got to see Fabian Lovett. We saw him practicing during the bye week. Now you get to see him take on a bit more, like Mike Norvell said after practice today, them increasing the reps for him during drills. I will say on Tuesday, he did have a really nice rep there against Dimitri Emmanuel, absolutely slinging him to the side there in one of the first reps that we saw him back in full action. Just looked like the regular Fabian Lovett. We'll see how limited he'll be Saturday. Mike Norvell said that he will be indeed a game-time decision, but I think there's a lot of optimism that you'll see one of your star defensive players out on the field Saturday against the Yellow Jackets.
I guess main thing for me this week is just kind of the competition, because I thought on Tuesday the wide receivers came out and had a really good day in the one-on-one and 7-on-7 periods. They got deep multiple times. Kentron Poitier, Johnny Wilson. I think Deuce was able to get one, maybe Malik McLean as well. The wide receivers made a ton of plays on Tuesday, and I was kind of surprised just how much success that they were having against the defensive backs on the day. And then you come back into today, the first period of the practice, 2-minute drills, the offense and defense up against each other. Defense brought a ton of intensity. You had Jarian Jones breaking up a pass on the sideline. Some really good coverage downfield as Jordan Travis, the offensive line had a good pocket, but there was just nowhere for him to throw as he was rolling out and looking. And the offense actually ended up missing a field goal on the drive and throughout the day. Just the battle between the DBs, the wide receivers, the tight ends. Thought it was what you want to see coming out of the bye week. And the coaching staff was really just focusing on the fundamentals. There was a play yesterday where Kevin Knowles, he was in position to make an interception, but the ball bounced off his hands, and Norvell ran over there and was saying, you've got to make the play, basically, because we know how much this Florida State defense has struggled to create turnovers. And when you look at the numbers, you're going up against a Georgia Tech team that's only turned the ball over 6 times this entire season. So you're really going to have to capitalize whenever those opportunities present themselves on Saturday. And same thing with the receivers. McDonald went after a catch in the end zone today with one hand, and Norvell's over there saying 2 hands on the ball at all times, just focusing on the fundamentals. And that's what Florida State needs to get back to these 5 games, because the numbers are there. Still have a top 30 offense and defense in the entire country, but you're sitting at a 4-3 record. And I think you get back to the little things, hone in, and these last 5 games could be really successful for the Seminoles.
It's funny you say that about Kevin Knowles, because you go back to your last game there against Clemson, and Kevin Knowles missed that sack, which could have potentially created a turnover and definitely would have eliminated that touchdown that Dabo Swinney was able to grab there with the wide open wide receiver over Akeem Dent. Like those little things there, you've got to execute on. And, Mike Norvell is very hands-on. It's been that way since I've been to the first day of practice. Nothing changes there. Like when Jordan Travis said it today to us, he brings the energy, and you don't ever have to worry about that. Yeah, Mike Norvell is going 110%, and he's going to hold everybody accountable. But it was very competitive on Tuesday. This morning, start off a little slow. The offense just couldn't find a rhythm there for a little bit. The defense was making plays. Jarian Jones, I thought, had a really nice day too overall at the cornerback position. But the offense took a little while. But then, man, at the end, Jordan Travis will sometimes do this where he's just dicing through that defense and just finding wide receivers, connecting with multiple guys, including Johnny Wilson a few times today. He just will sometimes have those spurts, and those on whenever it turns over to Saturdays when he has these practices, at least when we get to see him on Wednesday, last time that is open to media, he performs really well. I'm expecting a pretty good game out of JT on Saturday, just the way that he's been finishing these practices. And, he told us also that he's just tired of losing. He's ready to get back out there. He said he went down to Orlando, didn't do too much. Just said he did a little bit of shopping with some teammates and hung out. He said he wanted to get out of Tallahassee. He needed it. But, he's back. He feels better than ever. He said he feels amazing. He feels fresh. And that's a really good sign there. A fully healthy Jordan Travis is something that, not a lot of defenses like hearing.
I think that's the biggest thing, because we've talked about it on the show during this losing streak a little bit, that we thought Jordan Travis needed to get back on the field and just get back to having fun, being a little bit more loose out there. It just seems like he's been so tight over the last couple of weeks, trying not to make a mistake and lead Florida State to another loss, that he just kind of got out of his rhythm a little bit. And it also seemed like the amount of pressure that defense were getting on him affected him slightly as well when it came to his confidence in the pocket. So as you said, this week off was huge for him, just to get away for a little bit, just to recharge, and now focus on these final 5 games where you're not going to play, outside of maybe Syracuse, you're not going to play a defense like you just faced against Clemson or North Carolina State or even Wake Forest, with the way their front 7 was able to create some pressure on Jordan Travis. You're going into a little bit of an easier stretch here, and you're hoping the team can come off this time off a little bit more healthier and ready to execute.
Yeah, one guy, I mentioned him earlier, but we should definitely talk about him. Fabian Lovett. We're going to see how many reps he's going to get, how much playing time. Personally, I don't think you need to put him in there for too long. Let him get it into a little groove there, see how he's feeling, take him out, just kind of how you did with Jared Verse whenever he went down against Louisville in the next couple of weeks. You were seeing how far he could go and ended up being a game time decision type deal. This week will be the same way for Fabian Lovett. I think it's going to be a limited rep type thing here for what Adam Fuller will do with him. But just to have him back and have that presence, be a leader. We see him in pregame warmups. He's the guy in the middle calling everything. You see it at LSU. He's the guy hyping up everybody. Everybody listens to him just because he's a dominant guy, and what he says usually happens. Just having Fabian Lovett there in pads, going at it against offensive linemen. Not only that defensive line likes it, but that offensive line, they get better with having Lovett in there. So a nice addition there for Florida State, starting to get him back into the groove for your latter half of the season with 5 games remaining.
He's missed 5 straight games, 7 weeks overall, if you count in the 2 bye weeks that Florida State has had in this stretch. And it would just be critical to have him back, because that interior has really been tested, not only with play at times, but the amount of injuries that have just been stacked up throughout that position group with so many different guys missing time. And Fabian Lovett, it also potentially, because one guy we didn't really talk about in practice so far yet, Byron Turner had a really good week of practice, and he was injured earlier in the season, now back to full health. Seems like he's primed to potentially get into that defensive end rotation. I think having Fabian Lovett back as well, I mean, man, the depth is really starting to increase for Florida State on the defensive front. And Norvell actually said today, on Wednesday, he was able to do more than he did on Tuesday. Said Fabian is looking really good, got even more work today. It will be a game time call. I'm just not going to put him in a position if he's not ready to go play. He's been getting more work. We'll see how he responds after a higher workload today and go from there. So sounds like FSU is going to test him out before the game, but I would imagine that Fabian Lovett gets in there for 15 to 20 snaps. And, this is the kind of game that you're hoping Florida State puts away early. So get Fabian a little bit of work and get him ready for a higher workload against Miami, hopefully. But we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I really liked seeing Byron Turner now. Seemed to be almost quite to 100%. He hasn't said anything about that, but just to see his performance, definitely today, man, a standout, and yesterday. And another guy who I thought has had really good practices last 2 weeks is Julian Armella. I think he's starting to catch on a little bit with Coach Atkins. Coach Atkins has been very hands-on with him, and not that we're going to see a lot of Julian Armella this weekend. You would like to see some Julian Armella if Florida State can put some points on the board and put this thing away heading into the fourth quarter. But I've really liked the way Julian Armella practiced. He had a really nice rep against Jared Verse today, being dominant on him, man, and not letting him get to the quarterback. Then, of course, Jared Verse says, I need another rep. And then here comes Jared. And when you kind of tick off Jared, it's a different animal that comes out. So Jared Verse definitely won that next rep. But just to have that battle against what could be, a projected first round, second round talent with Jared Verse, Julian Armella is going against some really good competition too. So I just think he's developing really well. And I like the way that they're getting him implemented more into the system. I believe there was a depth chart change there, D-Lou, not that Norvell's depth charts are something that we should all rely on, but to see him be a guy that's a backup for Robert Scott right away is a good sign that something is developing there for Armella. He's got the size. He listens well when Coach Atkins is going at him. Julian Armella is going up and, listening to him. And that I'm super excited for him. He's going to have a big year next year, I think. But I love the development that I'm seeing from Armella right now.
Biggest thing for me is I just haven't really noticed him a lot lately. And that's a good thing when you're talking about an offensive lineman, because that means you're not seeing him get beat consistently. And I thought the last couple of days, just randomly watching, Jalen Early has been looking a lot more consistent. I was pretty impressed with a couple of his reps today and one-on-ones, and then also 2-on-2s over there, the offensive line versus the defensive line. And then true freshman defensive lineman Daniel Lyons as well. I think those are three young guys who have progressed very well this fall. And I mean, it looks like they're going to impact the rotation pretty soon. Not this year, but give them another offseason. We'll see what they're able to do in spring practice. And I mean, Daniel Lyons in particular on that interior defensive line at Florida State is just stacking depth there. Obviously moved Dennis Briggs over there recently with the interior injuries, and he stayed there so far during practices. We'll kind of see how that situation works out, but potentially getting Lovett back. I mean, man, the defensive tackle room and the defensive end room, especially with everyone kind of getting healthy now, you're feeling very, very comfortable with the depth that you have going into this last stretch.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Daniel Lyons, a guy that had some good reps today alongside Joshua Farmer too. Man, yeah. I'm like, sometimes I'm watching and when the defensive tackle gets back there so quickly, I'm like, damn, who is that? And sure enough, it's 44. He just gets back there. And the funny thing is, I'm so used to Odell Haggins last year, absolutely yelling at him, going at him. Now you just don't hear that anymore. And it's more to Bishop Thomas and Daniel Lyons, just because that's the way that Odell coaches. Once you pass that hurdle, then you might not have to get chirped on so much. But definitely some optimistic signs heading into the rest of the season and next year with Lyons, also Farmer getting into a group there. And then you also have Ayobami Tafase, who will be cleared for and be able to play next season. So there's definitely a bright future in that defensive tackle room.
Yeah.
Trying to think of anything else that CJ Campbell, that's another big one there. A guy that was lighting it up in the spring. I'm a big CJ Campbell fan. I mean, we were hearing some really good things out of him out of those two practices during the spring. He gets hurt early after one of those scrimmages. Don't get to see him at all. He, in my opinion, I think is Florida State's best pass catcher, in my opinion. I think he is great with the ball whenever he's catching it from the quarterback. And plus him coming back now seems to be 100%. We'll see if he gets any playing time throughout the rest of the season, what Florida State's plans are with him, but he does look good. And he looks like he's good to go. It's really nice to have CJ Campbell back there. I know you talked with Lawrence Toafili yesterday, D-Lou. What do you have to say about having Campbell back in the mix?
Yeah, CJ returned to practice this week, and that's the first time that we've seen him on the practice field since the preseason whenever he was injured during one of those scrimmages. And I mean, Lawrence didn't have too much to say about him. He just said, oh, man, I'm happy for my boy 22, back to get him going. I know he's excited. I'm just as excited as he is, just to have a familiar face out there. And then as well as Treshaun Ward, Norvell noted today that he's a little bit behind where Lovett is and his progression to get back on the field. But Ward has been sticking with the running backs during practice, stepping in and providing advice whenever. And then he's also putting out some cool dance moves on the sideline as well. You're muted.
Is he dancing?
Yeah, the GAs were having a real good time today watching him. I forget which song was on. Oh, it was a good song. I mean, I understood why he was grooving.
I was grooving. I would have loved for you to name that song, whatever it could have been.
It was a good one. But going back to Norvell, because just seeing CJ out there yesterday, catching some passes out of the backfield, working in individual position drills with the running backs. I don't remember him seeing him do team drills yesterday, but then coming out today, he actually got a couple reps in team drills and in 7-on-7. Norvell said he's ahead of schedule in his rehab, and we'll see where it goes on when he's able to get back out there and be full go on the field. But it's definitely great seeing him out at practice, and he's starting to make an impact. And Norvell noted he's a team favorite, so a lot of the roster is just happy to have him back out there and working. And especially with this guy being a walk-on, like you said, this scout team player of the year last year for Florida State, had a really good offseason, standout performance in the tour of duty. It looked like he was primed to potentially get into that running back rotation alongside Ward, Trey Benson, and Toafili before the injury. So we'll see where it goes from here and if he is able to crack into that lineup these last 5 games at some point.
Yep, we'll see if he can. I just love watching CJ Campbell play. So we'll see if he ends up getting into the mix eventually. Right now, you feel pretty good with what you got ahead of him. But we'll see. We'll see for sure. Definitely with having Ja'Kai Douglas back.
Yep. And you also have Josh Burrell is working a lot at running back. So suddenly, Rodney Hill, we love some Rodney Hill around here. Yeah. Suddenly that unit's getting beefed up a little bit.
It is. It most certainly is for sure. So a nice week of practice. Florida State hasn't had one of those kind of lazy practices in a while. They probably had maybe 2 max this season, and 1 during fall camp that, Mike Norvell, or 2 during fall camp that Mike Norvell wanted to change really quickly, and they did a really good job of that. This team is playing really competitively, and, Johnny Wilson did another thing. I mean, just put on another show today, and Jordan Travis, man, throwing some darts in that red zone. And he talked about it today. He went back and said there was a few throws against NC State, definitely that interception that he wished had never happened. But those are things that you got to move on from, and you've got to get ready for the next couple of games. You've got a lot of season left, and Florida State we got to remind some people, only has 3 losses right now. Has a strong potential to get to that 8-win mark, 9. You go to a bowl game. I mean, things can look really sexy heading into that offseason when you get on that recruiting trail. Don't look at me like that, Dustin. That'd be sexy. 8-4, not sexy to you?
Yeah,
sure. About 9-3.
It would be cool. I mean, I think 5-0 is definitely achievable, but 4-1 is probably the most likely outcome.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about the rest of the games here and just a few. We did it during last week's pod, but I'd like to see what VZ has to say about those. I feel like VZ is going to get back into an optimistic trend here.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see.
My optimism is going towards basketball season.
It's going towards basketball season?
Yeah.
Don't worry. We're getting there soon. We're going to be there eventually.
Close. We're really close.
Yep, absolutely. Let's jump into some recruiting stuff, D-Lou. Florida State on Monday. Love those evening decommitments, but this time from a talented offensive lineman in that 2023 class that was committed to Florida State under Coach Atkins. Or Eric Kearney, a 4-star lineman out of Orange Park, Florida. Decommits from the Seminoles, but just 3 minutes later, I was over here getting ready to write the piece, and over here flips over to Florida and Billy Napier. D-Lou, this was a weird feeling after the commitment. It feels like, something just, we heard some rumors here and there, and I'm not going to bring up stuff if it's not confirmed or anything, but just didn't seem like once the commitment happened, things just kind of started slowing down. Florida was trying to get him on campus. Florida State was able to get him back to FSU, and then he goes and sees Florida again, and here we go. He makes a flip from the Seminoles over to the Gators. D-Lou, what do you think about this?
Thought we had something special, for him to decommit while I'm in my car driving to go pick up dinner. It's just, frankly, it's disrespectful. But this is something that it's kind of been a long time coming. It was just a matter of when. He's been at UF a couple of times this fall, and things have just been trending back in favor of the Gators. And yeah, it's particularly weird because whenever he committed, we were able to speak to him and other outlets. And, he said, if you want it real, come to Florida State. Mentioned he didn't like how Florida had negatively recruited some of FSU's coaches and didn't feel like they were exactly genuine. So for that to change in a matter of 4 months or so, and especially coming off an official visit to Tallahassee, which he took for the Clemson game, didn't interview after that visit, hasn't spoken to reporters in a while. But yeah, a really kind of an odd end to this recruitment for Florida State, but there are still some talented offensive linemen on the board. Obviously, DJ Chester, a top target for Florida State. Chris Otto, someone that the Seminoles really like, who could play on either side of the ball. And a really interesting offer that just went out to junior college offensive lineman Keyshawn Blackstock. And I thought it was interesting. That offer went out on Thursday, just a couple of days before Kearney decommitted. So you wonder if Florida State caught wind of that and then went out to offer a talented interior guy. But a strange ending to this recruitment leaves Florida State with Lucas Simmons now as the lone offensive lineman in this class. But, you'd rather have a guy that's all in than just halfway in, like it seemed like Kearney was for a while. So what else can you say?
Man, I liked Kearney too. Got
Yeah.
to see him a few times in person, and we got to see him at one of the camps that Mike Norvell was holding. I liked him, and was, Coach Atkins really hands-on with him, good listener, good build, a good body. Just some things might not work out, but it's always weird, definitely, when you're flipping to the rival and going back to, like you said, D-Lou, a lot of things that he was talking about the Florida staff before he ends up committing to Florida State, just not talking so highly about them. You never know nowadays. You just never know. But, it's a tough loss for Florida State, but then you've also got Coach Atkins in the fold, and you've also got Mike Norvell. Usually Mike Norvell has plan B, C, D, and E on hand, and they usually answer pretty quickly. We'll see what Florida State's going to be able to do here. I know there's a couple targets. You put out a piece earlier this week of a few names that you think, Florida State should continue to pursue and maybe more focus on to add with Lucas Simmons, who is also a really talented offensive tackle that Coach Atkins has in that 2023 class.
Yeah, I just mentioned the majority of those guys a second ago, but yeah, just going back to this Kearney, the loss of Kearney, it didn't feel like this one was coming, because at least over the summer, because I remember, out there at the Seminole Showcase with Lucas Simmons and Kearney and Cedric Falk, and those guys were going against each other at one-on-ones, and you had Coach JP taking pictures of them before their matchup, and just having a real good time. So, yeah, to see this flip over this time period, and, I know Kearney has dealt with a hand injury and some stuff during his senior season, but regardless, still a very talented offensive lineman, and we'll see if the Gators are able to hold on to him leading up to the early signing period.
Yep, something to maybe keep an eye on while we watch his recruitment go through. There's some other recruiting news that have been popping up. Another one was Cedric Baxter. Before we get to Desmond Ricks, let's talk some Cedric Baxter here, a current Texas running back commit, really talented 5-star. Previously committed to Florida State a long time ago, but seems like Coach Yak, Norvell are pressing pretty hard on Baxter here to try to keep on getting him over to Tallahassee. What have you heard, and will we be expecting him this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, like you said, Florida State pushing really hard here, and it's interesting because they're able to get Baxter and his family in for that Clemson game on an unofficial visit, and that wasn't announced, obviously, until he arrived in Tallahassee, and whether that was something to not tip off Texas or whatever, regardless, they're able to get the visit, and it went really well by all accounts. And now just a couple of weeks later, having him come back for an official visit, I think Florida State would have preferred to do this later down the line, but when this is a prospect such as Baxter, you fit him in whenever the schedule allows it. And, especially the opportunity to build some serious momentum, having him on campus 2 times in 3 weeks. And from what I hear, he's expected to arrive in Tallahassee tomorrow night at some point. He'll touch down on campus on Friday, and this official visit will continue into some point on Sunday. Baxter's family's supposed to be with him, and yeah, I'll be out there. Hopefully he'll speak with the media afterwards on Sunday morning or afternoon. We'll provide a further update on that, but Florida State is pushing extremely hard for the Texas commit. Hakeem Williams was in his ear a ton during Clemson weekend, and I heard that they're setting up some more time to hang out over the next couple of days whenever both of those guys get to Tallahassee, because Hakeem Williams will also be here on an unofficial visit. And, it coincides with not only Baxter being here, but also Desmond Ricks, expectedly. Let me say that.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. Cedric Baxter, I like Cedric Baxter. The thing with them, Texas, they got a thing going there. Come on. Who doesn't want to play behind Arch Manning, man? The next best ever.
Well, it's just tough for Baxter because he's a Florida State fan, and he grew up a Florida State fan, a former Florida State commit for about a year. And that was when Norvell and this staff were in Tallahassee, and he's just seen what the staff has been able to do with running backs the last couple of years. And I don't think that anyone can argue when it comes to Mike Norvell and running backs. He's got that figured out as good as any coach in the country with the amount of quality players in that backfield. And it's possible that Baxter could see the same vision for himself coming in as the highest, the top running back that Norvell would have signed so far at Florida State, a real talent for them to develop in that backfield. So we'll see how it plays out. This official visit is going to be huge, and I think it would be crucial to lock up another trip prior to the early signing period if you're really going to pull this flip off.
I think Cedric saw last season and saw things weren't going so well for Norvell, and it's still a building thing. And, recruits see what they see. Then you go into this season, you get the win there on the road against LSU. You're competing. You're getting close. You're like one possession games against these ranked opponents. You're getting close. You see the growth there, and that's what a lot of these recruits, I think Hakeem Williams saw that, and that's why he's bought in and he's ready to roll, and he's going to end up being a recruiter for a lot of these guys, including Cedric Baxter and Desmond Ricks. That helps out a ton whenever you're seeing an improvement on the field. But for games like this against Georgia Tech, that's a game you have to win. That's just expected. You go in there and you win that game. And then for Miami, you beat that team too. You beat that team again like you did last year, and you should do it by quite a lot because they're going to have 16 fans in the stands. There's a lot of things that Florida State has on the recruiting trail that they are building momentum on, and this is where you see these 5 stars creeping their eyes on, being like, you know what, maybe I'll come view over here, because Texas is hot right now. They got everything, momentum, everything going on over there. And, Norvell is, slowly building this thing, and that momentum's building. Whenever you have improvement, that's right there on the field in front of your eyes.
Just the perfect situation at the perfect time, not only with Florida State's improved play on the field, but also that they can showcase that if you come to Florida State, you can produce like these running backs are producing. And also, it doesn't matter if you're a starter or a backup or the third string, you're still going to get involved in that rotation and get your opportunities as long as you prove it at FSU. You can see that with the 3-headed rotation that Florida State has been running all season. And I mean, they're also prioritizing him. The bye week came at a perfect time because Mike Norvell took a helicopter over there to Cedric Baxter's high school. And bam, couple hours later or a couple days later, and the news trickled out that he was going to be taking an official visit. And Norvell also was able to stop by IMG Academy. And now we're hearing that Desmond Ricks will potentially be in Tallahassee as well. We're trying to confirm that on our end, but we've been told from the Florida State side that they expect the recently reclassified to the 2023 class, the 5-star defensive back, still a 5-star, even though he is reclassified from the 2024 to the 2023 class, to be in Tallahassee this weekend.
So, obviously Desmond Ricks, talented dude, but it was a weird storyline a couple months ago. Very weird storyline.
Very.
I mean, we talked about it on here quite a bit, but said point blank on an Instagram post that Florida State had stopped contacting him, phone calls, texts, everything just went silent. Nothing was there. And it didn't seem like, from what we were hearing, and, we never heard from anything FSU wise, it was never going to happen. But things that we were hearing, that just wasn't the case. And ended up being, I think Desmond said something about another school too. And then also some other recruits decided to get involved and say they weren't getting contacted by Florida State. Right. It just ended up being a shit show. But now, that's seemed to maybe cooled off. We'll see what happens this weekend. But let's just say Florida State's able to get Desmond Ricks on campus. What does that do, D-Lou, do you think, in Florida State's chances there? Because there's some big teams there, Alabama, LSU, some big ones in there that kind of definitely have a lead. But, having him on campus would be nice after that whole debacle a couple months ago.
Seems like Alabama, LSU, Florida, and Miami are some of the other teams involved to keep an eye out for this one. And as for Desmond Ricks showing up at Florida State, I think it's too early to just yet to say what exactly this is going to do for their chances in his recruitment. Because when you think about him reclassifying now to the 2023 class, it looks like he's not going to be able to early enroll at a program. So it seems like he's going to push his recruitment back into February. And now you're sitting here, it's almost November, and he has all 5 of his official visits remaining now. since he reclassified. I would imagine that those programs that I just mentioned, along with Florida State, will likely be the 5 official visits. But I mean, that could obviously change. It's just going to depend because, I mean, we've seen with this recruitment that it can go one way and then it can go the other way quite drastically. In April, Desmond Ricks called Florida State his team to beat coming out of that visit for the spring game. And we had heard from multiple sources going into the weekend that Ricks was expected to commit to FSU the day prior to the game. For some reason, that didn't end up happening, but he still named Florida State his top team coming out. And then, yeah, like you said, over the summer, he claimed, I haven't heard from them in months. They must have gave up or something. So recruiting is a really weird thing, especially now.
And Tallahassee alone, man, good God.
With NIL and everything involved in it. But we talked about it when this originally happened. Defensive backs coach Marcus Woodson, he's been in this recruitment for a long time, has been developing a relationship with Ricks since he was in 8th grade. And it seems like maybe with Norvell stopping by IMG Academy, they were able to secure this visit. We haven't personally heard back from Ricks yet to confirm that he will be in Tallahassee. But like I said, the FSU side does expect him to be in. If he does respond, we'll provide an update, or maybe he'll put out a post on social media about it. But regardless, our eyes will be peeled on Saturday to see if Desmond Ricks does truly make it to Tallahassee. And if so, I mean, man, what a thing about all the wild recruitments that Florida State has been involved in over the last couple of years. I think you can add Kearney now to that list. I mean, Ricks is just as wild as they come. I mean, man, what a couple of years to be a Florida State fan that follows recruiting. I would advise that you don't.
Please do yoga or something.
Twist and turns like a roller coaster of emotion.
Yeah, and it doesn't. The roller coaster does not end until literally the end, until the signing is done.
And just to end it off, I did confirm with a Florida State source that Ricks is still a target for them, despite what has transpired in this recruitment over the last couple of months. So they're going to try and mend those fences and pull off a home run. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days. I'm interested.
VZ, are you interested, and are you stressing out?
I'm not stressed at all. Not one bit. Honestly, I could say more if I wanted to, but I'll just let the situation play out before.
Good. You keep it quiet. There, VZ. You don't want to tick off D-Lou here. You don't want to tick him off. Or you could. You live in Charlotte, so you don't see him.
It's not like he's going to do anything to me. He's scared of me anyways.
Dang.
I'm scared of him.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like VZ could.
He can just make me emotionally distraught very easily.
That's not hard.
I think he could.
I mean, it's not.
But yeah, so we'll keep a close eye on that. Anything else recruiting, D-Lou? Make sure you get a video of the recruits coming in on Saturday so we can see that.
Yeah, I would just say, mention Hakeem Williams, KJ Sampson, defensive tackle commit, is expected to be in.
It's a good one to have in.
Jabril Rawls, a guy like Kearney out of that Jacksonville area. I'm sure it's got to be a little bit of a shock for Rawls and KJ Kirkland to hear that news of Kearney flipping over to UF, because KJ Kirkland mentioned in his interview that Kearney was actually recruiting him to commit to Florida State. Camden Fryer, Keyshawn Mashburn, Peyton Naylor, a couple other commits will be in. We mentioned Cedric Baxter. We mentioned Desmond Ricks is expected in. One of the top targets, one of the top players in the 2025 class, 5-star quarterback Colin Hurley is expected to be in Tallahassee. That's another guy that I've reached out to. I've yet to hear back just yet, but the Florida State side expecting him in. Tony Tokar's leading the charge there for FSU. They're able to get him in a couple times over the offseason, once for a workout with Tokar's, where he was able to personally work with him and watch him throw along with some other players. So this is one where Colin Hurley, already a national recruit, has offers from pretty much all of the big schools in the country, Alabama, LSU, pretty much every powerhouse program that you can think of. He's probably got an offer from at this point in his recruitment. Florida native, so FSU trying to get in here early, establish this relationship, and hopefully pull something off in that 2025 class a couple cycles down the road. And then also maybe an interesting one that, see how the fans react to this one, 2025 kicker Brett Fitzgerald, the brother of Ryan Fitzgerald, will be in for an unofficial visit. So, we had the Aguayo pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
How about the Fitzgerald pipeline?
Hey,
Brother to brother.
No, no thanks.
I saw Ethan Fisher too, Jimbo's son, over there kicking over there for your NFC 50-yarder.
Gonna need more than that.
I would take a 30-yard, a good field goal. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest.
we just don't need another NC State situation where we're 45 yards out. We're trying to figure out what we want to do with 30 seconds left.
I'm feeling optimistic about Ryan Fitzgerald's turn. I am. I'm feeling good. I feel optimistic.
Someone does. I don't.
Not as stacked as a visitor list as Florida State had for the Clemson game, but still some nice talent coming in this weekend. Some guys in the 2023 class who FSU is monitoring and wants to check out and get an update on in person. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm not sure if I'm expecting a commitment or anything like that, but I think FSU has a chance to get some momentum here, continue pushing things with Cedric Baxter. And I mean, if Desmond Ricks shows up, that would be huge for Florida State's chances there with the reclassified defensive back. I mean, man, just having Hakeem Williams back around instead of at another school, that's a win in itself.
It is. It definitely is. So nice stuff there, D-Lou. Hopefully another busy weekend. You go from the Clemson game to this. Got some rich talent coming in for Florida State versus Georgia Tech. So
if you look at it, I mean, it hasn't been boring any game this year. Florida State, pretty much every home game, they've had some really talented guys coming in, and I think that's saying something compared to the last couple of years. You know, the talent has definitely stepped up a notch this season, and it just shows that the relationships with the recruits are paying off and the progress on the field is being recognized as well. And now these guys are really starting to see Florida State as a legitimate option.
Yeah, you would like to see that running back trio on Saturday put on a show there in front of Cedric Baxter. That would certainly be nice.
Well, duo.
Whoa. Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Word.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm ready to see Rodney Hill in there eventually. I'm ready to see Rodney. But, yeah, once you get Trayshawn back, then you get that trio going. But, yeah, the duo of Toa Philly right now with Benson would be nice to put on some yards, which they've done throughout the season. Let's see if they can get it going again in front of some recruits, especially Baxter, a former 5-star FSU running back commit. Before we move on and get into our Georgia Tech preview, if you're on YouTube right now, I'd definitely appreciate it if you hit that like button. Make sure you're commenting too if you have any questions or topics you want us to bring up. But hitting that like button helps get some more FSU fans onto the show, which always helps. And I really do appreciate everybody hopping on here with us on this Wednesday night and talking some Florida State football and basketball. Let's jump into this Georgia Tech preview, guys. I'm ready to get back into some football. I'm ready to get back into Doak. It was a nice week break. I'm like, dang, I can't wait for this bye week to get some rest. But then I'm like there, and after Saturday, I'm like, dang, I'm ready to get back to some football action. So excited to be back in Doak. I might be probably more happy because this is at noon, and I usually complain about noon games, but I'll be honest with you, leaving Doak Campbell Stadium at 1 a.m. is not the most fun, I'll be honest with you guys. So wrapping up things at the latest 4 o'clock will be clutch. Florida State kicks off at noon on the ACC network. Seems like there's like quarterback situation going on there for former Heisman winner and now coach at Georgia Tech, Chris Winkie. They've got a couple of quarterbacks, 3 of them that they said are practicing, could have a potential on playing against the Florida State Seminoles on Saturday. I don't believe that one damn bit, but we know a former FSU commit, Jeff Sims, was injured, was replaced last week. We saw what happened there with the nightmare for Georgia Tech, the whole running out of bounds situation. But they said they got 3 quarterbacks. Just initial thoughts going into this game, guys. What are y'all thinking?
Yeah, the uncertainty at quarterback probably provides the most interesting storyline coming into this game because obviously the Yellow Jackets came into Florida State a couple of years ago. Mike Norvell's first game in Tallahassee, Jeff Sims' first game at the college level, and they were able to defeat FSU, I believe, 16-13. But now we don't even know if Jeff Sims is going to be able to suit up, according to interim head coach Brent Key, dealing with a foot sprain and is considered day-to-day at this point, was knocked out, like you said, of Georgia Tech's loss to Virginia on Thursday. And he also left the previous game against Duke that they were able to pull out in overtime. And apparently this is a different injury than the one that he suffered against Duke. And there was another game earlier in the season where he was knocked out with an upper body injury. So no clue right now if Jeff Sims is going to be able to suit up. And if not, Brent Key said both Zachs will play. They have Zach Gibson, Akron transfer, who did not look very good last week. And then they also have true freshman Zach Pyron, a former 4-star prospect and Elite 11 finalist who has not yet appeared in a game or thrown a pass at the college level. So give me the Zachs.
It's a weird situation. I mean, Jeff Collins gets fired, a few games in the season. They're playing hard under the interim coach, and then now you got this rotation of quarterbacks. And I know you say they got 3 quarterbacks. The old adage is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. Well, they got 3, so they don't really have any. And, you mentioned Zach Gibson not being that great last week. Jeff Sims hasn't been that great all season. He's barely got 1,100 yards this far in the season. He's completing under 60% of his passes. Only has 5 touchdowns and 3 picks. Just hasn't really been doing much. And I think Florida State's going to be a little bit motivated, especially for those that were around for that first game in Norvell's tenure. They're going to want to prove something.
I think they will too. And you go back to think about it. It's a revenge game for Norvell. I mean, that loss against Georgia Tech.
That was a weird game. That was a very weird game.
It was odd. I mean, it started late too. Remember that? They had the rain delay storm. I'm pretty sure I had like a stomach bug too, and I had to leave. I've never left a game. I will only leave it after the game's over. I had to leave during that delay. I had a stomach bug, just a weird situation, and Norvell loses that to start off. It's a revenge game for him. And, Florida State needs to go out here and put some points on the board. And I'm looking at that offense too. And we're going to see it again probably where Florida State will go down on the field and have that successful drive. And it looked just absolutely magical. Like there's not even a defense they're going against. You'll see a wide open Cam McDonald. You have a few good big runs there. And then Jordan Travis will find a guy in the end zone, or JT will take it in and run and scamper in for 15 yards. Florida State's just been beautiful on their first drives on offense. And then for, almost the latter of the first quarter and then the second quarter, things just start falling off, and there's either not execution or play calling's off. Something's not right, where Florida State should put games away a lot quicker. And I mean, they did that against Boston College, but we see how awful they are. It's around that same caliber. They're definitely playing for this interim head coach, and these coaches are fighting for future jobs. But, going back to that quarterback situation, it's not going to be fun going into Doak and having to deal with that if you're a backup quarterback like Gibson. And it's not the most ideal situation to be going into. But, Florida State needs to keep the, foot down, man. And offense, I'm just not been – it's been rough to watch whenever they have that chemistry, and then it just falls off in between games in that second and third quarter, and then you're desperately having to fight to come back. That just – can't happen. This team, you can do that against Georgia Tech, probably, but it didn't work against ranked teams. And I'm hoping that Florida State, no matter who you're facing, should start getting onto a trend of doing that no matter whoever the hell you face.
The margin of error was extremely thin in Florida State's 3 losses. It just simply – there wasn't enough room to make mistakes against teams that were just so experienced, like Clemson, North Carolina State, and Wake Forest. And I mean, that's why 18 total points is what separated those losses from being wins. It was just a very slim margin of error. In Florida State, they didn't convert in the red zone at times. They missed field goals. They had turnovers. The defense gave up some really poor plays at times. And now, but it's not the same going against this Georgia Tech team because, like Austin said, Jeff Sims, he hasn't been amazing, but the whole offense hasn't been very good. Georgia Tech, one of 7 teams in the FBS to score 11 offensive touchdowns or less so far this season. They're averaging 16.1 points per game. That is 125th out of 131 in the FBS. This is a really bad offense that Florida State is going to be taking on this weekend, and I think it's going to be crucial for the defense to come out and set the tone because the offense has struggled. The defense has struggled too, but I thought they played better than the offense during that stretch of games. And it'll just be huge coming out of this bye week, potentially with Fabian Lovett back, to go up against this opponent and beat the hell out of them because Georgia Tech, they have a really bad offensive line. They've given up I'm not really good at math. They've given up 26 sacks so far this season, and I forget the number of tackles for loss that they allow per game, but it was one of the worst numbers in the country. So Florida State feasibly should be able to provide a lot of pressure here, especially if Jeff Sims is unable to play, because Zach Gibson is not nearly a threat with his legs as Sims is. And we'll see what happens, but I'm expecting a resurgence on both sides of the ball here for Florida State, as long as they don't turn it over, because we'll get into it, but that's the one thing that Georgia Tech does do well.
Yeah, I'm really hoping the D-line steps up in this game, and hopefully we get to see some Fabian Lovett. But Georgia Tech does have 2 running backs averaging over 5 yards a carry, which for as bad as their offense has been, that's going to be what they're going to have to do in this game if they want to have successes. Try and get Florida State up the middle like teams have had success in the last few weeks with NC State and Clemson. They're going to try and follow that similar kind of game plan because their quarterbacks aren't a threat. Florida State's going to try and stack the box and try and stop the run. And hopefully they can. If Georgia Tech's averaging 5 yards a carry in this game, maybe it gets a little closer than it needs to be.
Yeah, Florida State should be dominant there on that defensive line. It should be,
you would expect.
Even if you don't have Fabian
it's
Lovett
expectation, but you never know until the game's played.
Yeah, they've had a few games where you're like, damn, all right, so where's the defensive line? Where's the pressure at? And, Robert Cooper, too, we've found out pretty quickly through this many games that he does work off better whenever Lovett's inside that game. But still, you got Malcolm Ray. You're able to have Jared Jackson. We'll also see, we didn't get to see Jared Jackson against Clemson. We'll see what his availability will look like on Saturday. He did practice both Tuesday and Wednesday when we were there, so that's a good sign. But just seems to be hindering just a tad bit. Florida State's defense has got to put the pressure on them and not allow much. Like you said, VZ, they can run the ball, but Florida State's got some linebackers that can stuff. And you look at Tatum Bethune. Yeah. You look at Bethune there and the run. Also Lundy too, definitely. I think has been really nice in that short yardage run defense. And you got Kalen DeLoach, who's really your outside guy that he's got the speed. Florida State's defense should take care of business. Definitely, if you're looking at a backup quarterback with what we saw on TV last week, this game shouldn't last too long.
It's all about not overlooking your opponent because, the fact of the matter is Georgia Tech doesn't have the skill players at running back or at wide receiver that Clemson or Wake Forest or even LSU did. Florida State, they've played better teams. And, I would compare them to more of a Boston College as far as talent level, and especially with the chaos that they're dealing with, making that coaching change, going over to Brent Key. It is interesting because they're able to win their first 2 games under Key, went in, upset number 24 Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, and then defeated Duke in overtime, who has had a better season than expected so far under Mike Elko. So I think especially for Florida State, you've got a rivalry game next week, 7:30 Saturday night against Miami on the road. And you're going up against a 3-4 Georgia Tech team who might not have their starting quarterback. It's very easy to overlook this opponent. And I think we said the same thing about Boston College because they had Wake Forest the following week. And then they went in and did their job, took care of Boston College, got the starters out, came up short the following week, but still they executed that night against Boston College. And I think you want to see the same thing in this game against Georgia Tech, especially coming out of the bye week, because think back to that Louisville game. It was sloppy at times in that first half coming off a week off. And I think you could see the same thing against Georgia Tech, maybe a little out of rhythm early, but then they find it as you get closer to halftime and take the Yellow Jackets down in the second half. But we'll see how it works out.
The thing about that Pitt game is one thing Georgia Tech does well is they force turnovers. I think they forced 16 total turnovers on the year, and they forced Pitt into 3 and then didn't turn any over themselves. If Florida State's losing the turnover differential by 2 or 3 in this game, then it's going to be much closer than it needs to be. And we've seen Florida State shoot themselves in the foot a little bit these last few games. They got to stay away from some of those mistakes to keep this game where it's supposed to be.
It's a good, say it. It was early for Jordan Travis to get these lessons learned because going into it, you don't want to have those turnovers. And that's something Jordan Travis talked about after practice. And, just making mistakes and making throws, and he doesn't need to play hero ball. If he plays hero ball like this, Georgia Tech, they'll take it away from you, man. That's one thing that they're good at. It just doesn't need to play that hero ball. And that's one thing I don't want to see throughout the rest of this latter half of the season. JT not doing the whole, let's just toss it up and see what happens. He's very lucky he did not get picked off against Clemson there at the linebacker. I mean, that was just toss it, here you go. And you're in good field position too. That would have just been a colossal cluster F. You just don't want to do that against Georgia Tech to even give them a chance to have a game going into the fourth quarter. This is not a great team. This is just not a good team. And what I like about Mike Norvell, this team does a really good job of focusing on their opponent that week and moving on to the next. I'm not too worried about them overlooking getting ready for Miami next weekend. I think the Miami versus Georgia Tech game will be most watched TV. That should be incredible content on PBS at 9 a.m. So I'm looking forward to that one in a few weeks more than anything. Anybody that needs to primarily, I guess we talked about defensive line, need guys that need to stand out on Saturday significantly. I'm going to go just Jordan Travis. I want to see a bounce back game from him and take care of the ball well. If he takes care of the ball well, I think things are going to be smooth sailing for the offense. And I'm going to go significant. Someone's got to do well too, and that's going to be on the sideline. I want to see Mike Norvell get this offense go through 4 quarters instead of 2. I want to see a better rhythm through that side of the ball. It just hasn't been that way in the last couple of games whatsoever. I want to see 4 full quarters where you're putting points up on the board and things don't go stale after the first drive on offense. It's got to be fixed. You're not going to win any games, at least against good opponents that way. You can beat Boston College. You can probably do it against Georgia Tech, but I want to see a rhythm start now to where you're heading on the road in prime time against Miami. And then you got Syracuse. You got, more rivalry against Florida there at the end of the season. ULM, I don't really give a damn about, but you got to build some kind of rhythm, and that starts now on Saturday.
For me, it would probably be the cornerbacks because I had higher expectations for this group than the way they're playing right now. There's been a lot of struggles, a lot of miscommunications. Amarian Cooper and Kevin Knowles had some promising moments last year, but they've also had some struggles this time around. Same thing with Jarian Jones, AZ, the true freshman, kind of a little bit of back and forth there. And, Greedy Vance as well. Renardo Green has been pretty solid up and down, had a couple mistakes here and there, but I thought he's done his job well for the most part. But outside of that, I'm looking at the rest of that cornerback group to step up against a Georgia Tech team who, like we mentioned, doesn't turn the ball over. One of the only things that this team has done well so far through 7 games. Georgia Tech only has 6 total turnovers on the season. Like Austin said, they forced 15, and that turnover margin 4th in the country. So that's the way that Georgia Tech potentially gets an upset in Tallahassee. I mentioned earlier in the practice report how Mike Norvell was harping on some of these guys. A couple interceptions dropped, a couple not being the right angle on a couple of coverages that allowed a play downfield. It's going to be huge to see them potentially bounce back against an offense that doesn't have a ton of weapons. When you look at Georgia Tech's wide receivers, Nate McCollum has dominated the stat sheet, 34 catches, 345 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's basically 25% of Georgia Tech's total production on the wide receiver core. Outside of that, you go from McCollum at 34 catches to Malachi Carter at 13, and then E.J. Jenkins at 11. So watch out for them to force the ball to McCollum on Saturday.
For me, I'm looking at Trey Benson because we're still expecting Trayshawn Ward to be out for this game. And Trey Benson was a huge reason why Florida State was in the game for the first half against Clemson. He was able to do things to that defensive line that Clemson hadn't really seen all year. He needs to continue having some success in this game. Georgia Tech's giving up about 4 yards a carry on the ground. He's got to keep running north and south because, man, he can flat over run over people. And he's got legit 4.3, 4.4 speed. As long as he's playing at a high level, Florida State's offense seems to be doing a little bit better and sustaining drives and not stalling out like you mentioned. Whether it's play calling, whether it's execution, the running game has a lot to do with that.
You got the talent there to do it for sure. And I would love to see, hopefully, Florida State can handle things, and we can have a fourth quarter to see some of these youngsters get in, like a Julian Armella, a Rodney Hill, more Ray Thomas, even Sam McCall too in the defensive backfield. I'd love to see that where you get some chances to some youngsters, maybe throw a Tate Rodemaker there, and at the end, it should be a game that you can do this. And they were able to do it against Boston College. Just from what we saw, I mean, we got to remember what we saw last week. That was not pretty football from Georgia Tech. This game to me shouldn't last too long. But if they're going to pull that crap again where they can't play offense for 2 quarters out of the game, then yeah, it will be a little bit of something at the end. So we'll see. Anything else, guys, before we go on to do some score predictions?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a pre-score prediction that Florida State is gonna block a punt this weekend. Georgia Tech has had 4 blocked punts this season, so I'm gonna say Florida State either blocks a punt or Micah Pittman gets a punt return touchdown this week.
Pittman could finally get his. All right, I like it. I like A. Now, who blocks it though?
Bold prediction.
Coming off
Shaheem.
There's only one name
for the punt.
Shaheem. Question is that.
He actually had one last week.
He'd block me on Instagram. He'll block anybody.
He blocked you on Instagram? I almost fell for just like a small bit of my brain. It's been a long day, but I almost
Dustin doesn't use Instagram enough to get blocked.
I was about to say, like, damn, what did you do to Shaheem to do that? Was it in the locker room after LSU game? Did you not go talk to him afterwards? Maybe that was damn. That's messed up. Yeah, and I don't know if I have any crazy bold predictions here. Who's going to get a sack other than Jared Verse or Derek McLendon?
Remember, Georgia Tech's given up 26 of them in 7 games. That's an average of over 3 a game. So, who's getting 2 sacks? Potentially half the roster.
Ooh, give me. You know what? I'm gonna go Jalen Ramsey's been hot again. Those safeties getting a sack. I'm gonna go Jamie Robinson here, even though Jalen's a corner. But I'm gonna go Jamie gets a sack. I'm going on the pluses here. That's like a plus 1,500 on FanDuel, right? Man, if only we could bet in Florida. If only. I got a little Jamie Robinson sack. I don't know. I can't say anything more than that, but I like what I've seen from Jamie this week. See what happens. Oh, they got PP getting himself one, says Tom. PP?
He should.
I can see.
He should. He's gotten very close these last few games.
Man's due. Yeah, I got another Pat Payne in here. Yeah, no, this show and the Facebook, YouTube crowd do like some Pat Payton. So let's jump into some score predictions, guys, and we'll get into the latest with some basketball to finish off the show. We got a fun one here. Nooner and Doak for Tally. Should be beautiful weather. Safe travels to everybody coming in town. Looking forward to seeing you guys. I don't know who went first last week. I completely lost. I think I'm in the middle. So someone's.
No, technically you're the end. You're the end of the rotation.
Am I? Okay.
I think. What game are we on? This is game 8. I believe Dustin goes first.
Right.
Dustin, look at me. I believe.
Give us a good one, D-Lou.
First noon game of the season. I'm very excited to wake up and go over there. But, yeah, coming into this game, Florida State, they've lost 3 straight, but I think they're able to recharge, refresh a little bit over the bye week. And like I said, the next 5 games they're playing aren't like the last 3. I mean, they really played 3 damn good football teams. In North Carolina State, they're probably going to end up dropping out of the top 25, but they're easily a top 20 team in the country whenever Devin Leary is healthy. I mean, the Atlantic Division has just simply been very good this year. And when you look at the stats, Florida State, I believe, a top 10 toughest schedule in the country through 7 games so far in 2022. So the numbers back it up, but Georgia Tech, not one of the elite teams on Florida State's schedule, really have struggled on offense. 118 out of 131 in the FBS, only convert 29.7% of their third downs. And I mean, there's just that uncertainty at quarterback. And even if Jeff Sims is able to go with that sprained foot and he suffered an injury the week before, it's feasible to assume that he's not going to be 100% either way. And that obviously plays in the favor of the Florida State defense with how porous Georgia Tech's offensive line has been. As long as FSU can hold on to the ball and convert in the red zone, I think they win this game pretty handily. Like I said earlier, I think it mostly comes down to not overlooking your opponent. Don't worry about Miami. Go in there, take care of Georgia Tech, and then start getting the plane ready. I've got Florida State winning this game 41-6.
Whoa, damn. Damn, he teased us earlier, but this ain't even close. This one ain't even close. All right, dang. So
Sorry.
2 field goals or a missed extra point for a block kick?
So I'm projecting
Brown,
Sims not to end up playing, and I watched the game last week. I didn't like what I saw from Zach Gibson, and he got sacked 7 times by Virginia.
Yeah.
And they're also potentially going to throw a true freshman there who's never played.
Just a bad.
They might have more
that
than
true freshman is unreal. We don't know.
He's never thrown a pass.
Jared Verse is licking at his chops. Listen
Also,
to
they've
that.
got the former Clemson quarterback over there, Tyson. Can't say his last name.
Whatever starts with a P.
The long one. It's very surprising to me that
Pinocchio.
he's the 4th string quarterback over there. He's not getting a look at all. Transferred into Georgia Tech over the offseason.
Chris Winkie don't like him, man.
I guess
Winkie don't like him. Guess not. It'll be good seeing Winkie down there.
But either way, I'm
text me back, Winkie.
41-6 Florida State to get out of the 3-game losing streak.
True. All right, I like that. I like that. VZ, what do you have? What are you thinking here? You'll be at work, so you won't be able to watch it.
Yeah, I'll keep up with it on my phone, obviously.
True.
I don't know how much I'll be able to watch. It's interesting because, as bad as we've talked about Georgia Tech, they are tied for 2nd in the Coastal, which has to stand for something, right?
Yeah.
When the Coastals
that the ACC
brains.
should have eliminated divisions this year instead of next year. Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah. I don't think Florida State's going to score 40. There's only been 2 teams that have scored 40 on Georgia Tech this year. It's been Clemson and Ole Miss. Everyone else has been below 30. I think Florida State's somewhere in the middle. I don't expect this to be much of a game, especially because I don't respect Georgia Tech's offense. But at the same time, I think this team's going to be focused. Coming off 3 straight losses, they want to get back in the win column. They want to get back for Mike Norvell's first loss at Florida State. Hopefully it's like the Boston College game where, midway through the 3rd quarter, we're seeing Tate Rodemaker trot out there. But we'll see. I got Florida State 35-10.
35-10. Okay. All right, so that's a good amount of points, I think, too. I'm around the same range of y'all, too. Don't really need to go in depth on anything, but just a few things here that I need to note on. Chris Winkie last spring still hasn't texted me back. After we met, shook hands, talked for a little bit there, wanted to get you on the podcast for all of our great listeners here. Did not text me back, so that adds on another 7 points, not in your favor. Maybe 14, I don't know. And then the second thing is Georgia Tech came in here and ruined Mike Norvell's debut. Wasn't so great about that, so maybe that adds on another 7 points. I think Florida State takes care of business. Florida State did a good job taking care of business against Boston College, who they could have easily overlooked. They stayed focused, did what they needed to do. Mike Norvell, just put that away pretty damn quickly. We were in the press box looking at each other in the first quarter, just leaning back, grabbing some food, and just hanging out. But I don't think this one will be close going into the 4th. I got Florida State winning this one. 37, close to the 40s. I got Florida State 37, Georgia Tech 10.
Georgia Tech.
I don't know where that came from.
37. The 37.
Yeah, man.
37. Is that a missed extra point, or is that 3 field goals from Fitzgerald? Because I don't like.
I'm
I'm
hoping that there's going to be a rhythm of the offense. I go into these, VZ, when I make these score predictions, I don't think all too crazy into them. They just somehow, whenever it gets close in the end of the game, they're right there nearby, just a touchdown away usually.
What was your score again?
Mine or
37-10.
his?
So you just added 2 points, so it wouldn't be the same as Austin's?
Pretty much, yeah.
No,
Not
I
even
didn't even
3?
I didn't remember what his was.
Correct. But yeah,
Well,
Chris
I saw-
Winkie, man. How do we not get that text back? Not all Heisman winners are the same, because you've got Charlie Ward out there today on the sideline at Florida State's practice watching, and he's been a consistent guest on here a couple of times throughout the year. So not all Heisman winners are the same. We appreciate you, Charlie.
Yeah, we do appreciate Charlie. We've gotten close a few times with Jameis. Well, that one will definitely happen one day, but that one's going to be a special one. That is going to be, there ain't going to be nothing else going on. That's just going to be a full-on interview. But we're still waiting on Winky there. I do count P-Dub as being a guy that should have won a damn Heisman, but didn't get one. But we got to get we got to get Charlie back on before the season ends, and I'd love to get P-Dub back on here too. He's always brings some great energy on the show. So, VZ, latest with some basketball, baby. There was a secret, in quotes, secret scrimmage that went on with Michigan. If you're in the Discord, VZ laid out a lot of good scoop there, related everything about basketball. What do we got going on? We're getting close to the season. We got an exhibition game tomorrow night. Wish we could be there, but I'll be down in Tampa. D-Lou will be riding from home, covering the Bucks versus the Ravens. Sadly, we won't be there. Maybe we'll send Maddox. What do we got, VZ, in the latest?
Yeah, so I don't want to talk about too much about the secret scrimmage. I'll leave that as a Discord secret.
All right.
But everything I was told was that it went well for Florida State, and Michigan's a good team. They bring back Hunter Dickinson, who, if you remember, tore Florida State up a couple years ago in the tournament. But they've got some real talent this year. They're projected top 4 team in the Big Ten, which is a very good conference. And apparently Michigan wants to make this not an annual thing with Florida State, but a semi-regular thing with Florida State, to play them every preseason. Obviously, Coach Hamilton coached Jawan Howard in his brief stint with the Wizards. But it's a good opportunity. Michigan was very set on this being in a neutral site game, which is weird for a scrimmage in the season. But they got to play it in Orlando, which Florida State already has to play down there twice this year, once against UCF in a couple weeks, and then in the ESPN Invitational around Thanksgiving. So, it makes sense. Get the travel down there, get used to it. So you're not surprised in a couple weeks when you're heading down to UCF, who may or may not surprise the people. We'll see how they play. But yeah, it went well when Florida State played the brand of basketball they wanted to play. They're a lot of times with these scrimmages, people or teams are doing a lot of different things just so the other team can get some practice against it. So there's a lot of zone defense, a lot of walk-ons playing, especially in the second half. But from all things we've been told, it went pretty well for Florida State, and that's it's a good sign, because everyone saw the Jalen Gainey injury and they're like, how's this team going to perform with his loss? And maybe we start to see a little bit of that. But yeah, first exhibition game tomorrow against Newberry College. There's a former Florida State grad assistant on the Newberry staff, in case you're wondering why they scheduled Newberry.
I wasn't.
Some people were. You never know.
It's an exhibition game. They can play whoever.
And this is the only exhibition game of the year. At least
which is strange, right? Because normally, I guess the secret scrimmage took one.
Yeah. But technically, I guess
basketball away from us, Ham.
So yeah, only one true exhibition game this year. It won't be streamed because everyone's going to ask about it. They never want these streamed. They want to keep things as quiet as possible. I don't even know if there's going to be a radio broadcast. I'm assuming there is, and I'm going to try to listen to it, but we will see. And hopefully these guys look good, because everything we've been told is these guys are ahead of schedule. They're really starting to come together.
That's good.
I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. Really, the only thing kind of somewhat negative I've heard is Bob Miller is still not in great basketball shape right now. He was dealing with some injuries over the summer and still getting his conditioning worked up. But his basketball mind is just insane from everything we've been told.
What can you tell us about Newberry College? Because I'm sure you've really dived into the scouting report here, and kind of lineup are they bringing?
The scouting is beginning now as he goes to Google.
The only thing I can tell you is that they're based in South Carolina. That's the only thing I know.
And the grad assistant.
Yeah, and the grad assistant that's on staff there. That's all.
They're really slacking ahead of the first game.
Listen, what do you want me to do, man?
Do they got shooters or not? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm assuming there's a whole bunch of white kids that can shoot, but we'll find out tomorrow night. All I can hope is that this doesn't end up like Syracuse's exhibition game, which I don't know if anybody except me paid attention to that. They were down 7 to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Just let that one.
Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. They're down 7 with 13 minutes left.
How's that make sense? That's like 2 different states.
Well,
I'm confused.
There's IUPUI, which is Indiana University of Pennsylvania of something.
Be like a Florida.
Sounds like
Georgia.
they should just stay in Indiana.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense to me. But hopefully this doesn't end up. Hopefully this doesn't end up like that.
Are they in Indiana or Pennsylvania? Can you answer that?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Like by the line or something? Maybe they're near the line there. Maybe potential there.
I'll tell you, I'm not a map guy, but do those states border each other?
No, there's Ohio.
Someone whip out the Google Maps, please.
I don't need to. Ohio is between them.
Okay.
Just hopefully this doesn't end up like that Syracuse game where there's 12 minutes left. We're like, where what?
Here we go. We have some facts here from Dave on YouTube. Newberry is a top 15 D2 football program. Good fun fact there for everybody. If you want to know about Newberry, what color, Dave? Can you give us some colors of what they're going to be wearing?
They are red and white. I know that they're red and white.
Ooh, so Indiana-ish, like Indiana-ish a little bit.
I don't know why we keep going back to Indiana.
You brought it up. Now we got to figure this out. We've got to figure this out.
I'll find it. I'll find University of Pennsylvania.
I feel like this is crucial. Since we don't know anything about the basketball team, I think we need to figure out the location so we can figure out what kind of talent that area comes.
Pennsylvania has a county called oh my goodness. Pennsylvania has a county called Indiana County.
That's stupid.
So it'd be like Florida County?
Kind of.
No, it'd be like Florida having Texas County.
And it is, it's southwest Pennsylvania, so it's not close to Indiana at all.
So we'd have the Florida University of Texas State College University.
My brain is just, I've left it. Like I've thought of something else and I've just completely, I was in there, I was zoned in trying to figure this out and everything, connect the dots, but I've had enough for today.
I was just explaining what it would be like if it was in Florida.
Well, it's like Kent State being in Ohio. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but it's Kent, Ohio, so that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, but
it's not Kentucky. It's just.
I bet most people, if I didn't tell them that, would assume it's Kentucky State, but it's not.
Where'd you get the S? Where's the state at? It's just Kent.
This school is Kent State, isn't it?
Well, how are we?
Can we just talk about basketball?
I mean, let's
talk about Leonard Hamilton looking great for his age.
I'm keeping all the secret scrimmage stuff in the Discord for Chief members only for now.
Get in the Discord. Links in the description below. Get into it, and it's free to join. Even if you don't want to get the good nuggets from VZ, still get in there and hang out with us.
Yeah, come hang out. We have a good time in there. We posted an article today where I discussed, starting 5, some other questions being asked about the season. Definitely check that out. And check out my ACC preview from last week too, because people were asking about that.
Yep. Get in there. How's Leonard Hamilton looking at his age to finish this off for us? Because we always need to know how he's doing.
He said at ACC tip-off that he was having a hip issue. I'm like, oh God, I've been there. But yeah, I mean, he's still ageless. He's going to be coaching for another 8 to 10 years.
Alfred. It's a discussion we kind of had last year at the end. Not that that's happened. I don't think it happened.
If it was up to him, he'd be coaching.
Yeah. No, I love Leonard. So I'm looking forward to get back there.
He's more joyous this year, more bullish on the team. It's something that we haven't really seen from Leonard Hamilton in preseason. Usually he's like trying to temper expectations, and this year's like, don't be surprised about this guy. This guy's gonna be really good for us, et cetera, et cetera.
I think it was really getting used to having a lot of these transfers come in, man. That's not easy. And then you also having to deal with really young, talented players, but still having to get them transition and develop them. You had the transfers coming in. You have a year in your belt with that. Now you go into the second year with them. I think he feels a lot more confident, I would imagine.
And the development that the guys have taken. I mean, I can't say enough how much I've heard about Jalen Worley and the steps he's taken this offseason. Hopefully Cleveland's taken that next step with his offensive game. Hopefully I mentioned that Caleb Moses added some weight, which he needed. like I said, I'm excited. And there's going to be more shooting this year, which is going to help the spacing for Worley and Cleveland to drive a little bit.
Damn. Oh, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get back into the tuck, baby. It's always a good time in there. But I think that's going to wrap it up. Dustin's shaking his head now. He goes to Dustin only goes to the games whenever Florida State's doing good, like we saw last year.
It's funny since we've had season tickets since 2014.
That's what I'm saying. You got season tickets no matter what, but you still don't. You just go to whichever one.
I was there for basically every game up until the second half of last year. Yeah,
the second half of last year.
Busy at work. Sorry.
No.
Now I don't have a job, so I'll just be at every game.
Yeah. What do you do?
Just screw around, basically.
Yeah, because he doesn't edit. I'll send him an article. It's past 12:30 p.m. I'm not editing right now.
It's like running around.
He was actually true about that. He held on to that.
I know
he
did. It didn't get published until 2 a.m. I was like, come on.
We had a lot of stuff going on.
Unreal.
Yesterday was a busy day on the site. Look at the 7 articles.
Says he's editor in chief. Past noon, he's like, I'm out. I'm on my lunch break for 7 hours.
You're just on such a power trip. You put an article in. You want me to edit it right then? No, there's a waiting period. Come on,
a power trip. I think he was just putting it in there.
Only the fact you said.
I was driving home when I got that text, or I was still at the practice.
He ticked him off before his lunch.
There's only the fact you said I don't edit past 12:30 p.m. I'm like, what? When do you edit?
Being an asshole. That's what he's being.
I know. Like,
all right, let's wrap this up. Thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate it. Hope to see a few of y'all out there on Saturday. Florida State kicks off against Georgia Tech and the Yellow Jackets at noon on the ACC Network. Looking forward to being there, covering it. We'll have an instant reaction right afterwards, after the press conference around 4-ish. I don't know when that game will end, so sooner the better, but we'll have an instant reaction for you guys. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're still on YouTube right now, we'll definitely appreciate if you just hit the like button before you head out. It helps out a ton and super appreciative. Everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy it, and we will talk to you guys on Saturday afternoon. No longer Saturday night, Saturday afternoon. Thank God. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Peace.